Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Daily Defender. Great to be with everybody again. So glad you're tuning in once again to the channel to see some new content. Really want to thank everybody for the views. We're getting a lot of people watching videos now, so we really appreciate it. We could certainly use more subscribers. Like I said in the last video, we can't really keep moving the channel forward without subscribers and likes and views, and the amount of time you're spending with us is really important. So please do all those things. Hit the subscribe button, hit like, hit the bell, etc., so we can kind of keep this channel moving forward and hopefully doing some more things with it and some cooler things with it in the future and all that. So that's our admin. And then the usual disclaimer on my face blur. It's strictly because of my day job and protect myself and my family, and so I can express my views and my content on my channel. So with that out of the way, as usual, I wanted to get into the pistol today that we wanted to talk about. And I'm going to kind of build on the third gen theme. I put out that video the other week on the Smith & Wesson, the 5904. And of course, that's a third gen semi-automatic pistol. And I spent a little bit more time in that video trying to explain what Smith & Wesson was trying to do and what their thought process was coming out of the second gen guns into the third gen guns, and what developed with the product with that. So it's a little bit longer video, but hopefully there's a lot of good nuggets in there and a lot of good information for you, especially if you're new to the Smith & Wesson third gens or considering one. But along that theme is the firearm that we want to talk about and bring you today. And this is a cleared firearm, so we're clear and safe, so we can work with this now easily. The firearm I want to bring to you today is a Smith & Wesson 4006 TSW, which stands for Tactical Smith & Wesson, but it's actually the CHP version, or the California Highway Patrol. So this pistol has a lot going on it, with a lot of kind of name and nomenclature, right? That's kind of a mouthful in terms of Smith & Wesson 4006 TSW, CHP, etc. But it's a very, very interesting pistol in its own right, just in terms of the features and what Smith & Wesson eventually did with it. This is a very late generation, third generation semi-auto. I don't think anybody considers it an almost fourth generation. Of course, Smith & Wesson never produced a fourth generation, but it's a very, very late 2006, 2007 time frame pistol that the California Highway Patrol would have been using at that time. And we'll get into we'll do the deep dive as we usually do. But before we go there, I think we need to take one step back, because this is a 40 caliber, 40 Smith & Wesson caliber firearm. And once again, we have Smith & Wesson, we have the FBI, and we have cartridge development, at this time with Winchester, back in 1990. And again, we have to go back to the FBI shootout of 1986, the Miami shootout, which will continue to probably wind up in different videos and we'll talk about in different videos. There's some great books out there and movies, etc. If you haven't kind of done a deep dive on the Miami FBI shootout, it's amazing information, how law enforcement looked at that event and what they took away from it, and the level of detail that they analyzed in that. I'm not sure, there's much that really equals that. But one of the aspects that came out of that shootout was the fact that the FBI determined that the 9mm pistol and the 38 caliber revolver, both of which we have here. This is the 459, and this is also a cleared pistol. We've done a video on this as well. Again, if you haven't seen that, please check it out. But the agents that day, a number of them were armed with the Smith & Wesson 459 and 9mm, and quite a few of them, a number of them also had, once again, we've got a cleared revolver here, the Smith & Wesson 357 Magnum Model 13 with the heavy barrel. Along with the other variety of firearms that day. But the FBI, that shootout, the FBI determined that the 9mm caliber specifically due to the event that day and the silver tip and et cetera. And again, you kind of need to delve into that shootout to understand, but the FBI effectively felt that the 9mm and that particular time and the technology of that bullet and caliber wasn't up to the task. And so the FBI went very quickly, 86, within 4 years, had worked with Smith & Wesson, less than that actually, because they moved to the 10mm very quickly after the FBI shootout. And then, unfortunately, that didn't work out for a number of reasons, and we can go into that in another video. But then they worked with Smith & Wesson again, and quickly, like I said, within about 4 years, introduced the 40 Smith & Wesson caliber, which was basically kind of a neck down, slightly lower pressure cartridge from the 10mm. And Smith & Wesson then in 1990 came out with the Smith & Wesson 40-06, which is effectively this pistol not in the TSW and CHP variant. It was just the standard Smith & Wesson 40-06 in 40 Smith & Wesson cartridge. And so that's the history behind the cartridge and how the 40-06 came into the Smith & Wesson line and when in 1990, and then we moved to to this particular pistol, which Smith & Wesson produced for the California Highway Patrol. So that's the background. I'm sure there's a few other points there that I'll bring into the deep dive, but that's the firearm that we're going to be talking about today. And without further delay on the intro here, let's get into the Smith & Wesson 40-06 TSW CHP. Right. So as I just mentioned and introed in the video, we want to talk about the Smith & Wesson Model 40-06 TSW California Highway Patrol today, and we're going to go ahead and do our deep dive. I did want to make a few clarifying points. I was able to double check some of my dates, and I found it interesting because I was double checking the dates that Smith & Wesson introduced the Model 1076, which was the FBI version of the 10mm in 1990, at the same time, the same year that it introduced the 40-06, the standard model. So they were both introduced right in that 1990 time frame. And I just found that interesting. From memory, I had thought that they had brought out that 10mm sooner than 1990. I thought it was around a 1988 time frame, again, referencing the 86 Miami shootout with the FBI shootout, but it appears that both dates for the 10mm and the 40 correlate with 1990, which was interesting. So I just wanted to make that point. And the other point I wanted to make is that the California Highway Patrol used these pistols considerably longer, maybe not as a TSW. So that was the point I was trying to make in the intro. That this particular pistol was a late or mid 2000 version, and that's true. But I double checked those dates as well, and the California Highway Patrol started using the Smith & Wesson standard 40-06. It appears right in 1990, and then moved to the TSW version, and there was a different version that had more of a secondary rail attachment. It was bolted on or screwed on, and that's really the difference here when we get to this this particular model, this 2006-2007 model, that the integrated rail then was requested as part of the contract from California Highway Patrol. And so that's interesting information, I thought, and I just wanted to clarify some of those points. And they went ahead and used this pistol, and again, we've got a cleared and safe firearm here. The California Highway Patrol used this pistol, this particular version now, the TSW CHP, in this integrated rail version, I saw reports of 2011, 2012. I seem to recall even statements maybe 2014 as the final ones were being pulled out of service, etc. Spare firearms being sold off, and that's really what happened with these. I don't know the total number of firearms that were eventually released by the CHP when they moved over to to their next firearm. But when they decided that they were completely done with these firearms, that, you know, it was probably around this 2012, 2014 time frame. Not to say that there isn't, I don't know CHP's policy. There could be a grandfathered policy if you've got a senior officer and he's decided to hold on to this firearm and as his sidearm. I don't know what the CHP's policy is. Ironically, I just saw earlier this year a Chicago police officer, definitely a senior, you know, officer, has had a third generation Smith in his holster. So, you know, these things are still actually being used in duty holsters. Again, maybe not this particular version, but these Smith & Wesson third gens, such a connection to law enforcement over decades that I was fairly shocked to see that police officer still had a third gen. That Chicago police officer in his holster. He was they had a officer that had been injured in the line of duty, and he was when they were releasing her from the hospital, he was there, and you could see the pistol in his holster. It's pretty amazing. But at any rate, we want to talk about this, the California Highway Patrol version. And again, this is a very interesting sidearm because of what Smith & Wesson, you know, was doing with the California Highway Patrol and the features that the California Highway Patrol wanted in this pistol, and that Smith & Wesson was willing to build for them. And I think it's again another indication of Smith & Wesson back in the day. I don't know if it's like that really today, but certainly not that long ago, where Smith & Wesson would build any model to a department-specific criteria and engrave things and change different features, et cetera, et cetera. And this is definitely an example of that, and we'll talk through it. So we said earlier in the video, in the intro, this is based off of the standard 4006 40 Smith & Wesson caliber. It's a very interesting firearm, only in the fact that it's sheer weight. Now, granted, this one has the rail on it, but this is almost a 29-ounce firearm unloaded, and it is completely stainless steel. And just holding it here, I can tell you, if you've never held one, the weight is noticeable, and it really, truly does feel like a tank. You know, like a lifetime pistol or something you couldn't destroy. It's really, it has that feeling to it. There's just no light balance anywhere. It's just this block of stainless steel, and you really do feel it. And I will say, you know, shooting the pistol, it's great to shoot. It's absolutely a wonder to shoot. It really feels like shooting kind of a hot 9mm. And it's really, really probably one of the most enjoyable 40 caliber firearm handguns that I've shot. It's the weight just soaks up the recoil. The recoil management is very good. But yeah, so getting down into the pistol, this is, you know, still a classic third gen firearm for Smith & Wesson. It has a lot of the third gen features that we've talked about previously. You have the wraparound Xenoy one-piece grips. You have Novak sights, 3-dot white sights. So you have a lot of, you know, a lot of similar features because its base platform is a third gen. You've got rear serrations. You've got a double decocker here, and we'll talk a little bit about that because that's unique on this particular pistol. And so I guess a few things to tell you about it straight away that make it unique. The slide and the frame were hand fitted, and they were machined from the same block of stainless steel or same raw material. And my understanding is the slide and the frame traveled through the entire production process together. So, you know, it's not a custom gun. It's not a performance center gun, but it is a level up from standard, I would say. And the fact that this gun was designed, or, you know, was hand fitted, and the slide and the frame were together through its entire production And what's interesting about this firearm is there's 3 numbers stamped on this firearm: the slide, the frame, and the barrel, and they all have the same number. So you can see this matching and marrying of these parts through the life of the pistol, and that part is unique. Other unique features on this firearm, we've already talked about the rail. There was this integrated rail that the CHP wanted. They had a previous version. It was a black MIM part, I believe, that was bolted or screwed onto the bottom. And I think there were some, generally it worked well. I think there were some reports of cracking, but the final version of this, and again, this one is a 2006 to 2007 model production range, and that's when the CHP said we wanted a completely integrated rail. And so they got that. Obviously, it has the rather unique name engraved in it. Some people think it's a little over the top. I really don't mind it. I actually kind of think it's kind of cool and kind of 90s, right? Because it was, again, this 1990s, this pistol, although, again, we said this is a 2006, 2007. Many of the other features, like we said, stay. You've got the large beaver tail. This one has a very nice checkering on the front. And of course, it has the undercut like the 3rd gens had. This is obviously a late generation gun in the Smith & Wesson family, so it has the curved trigger guard. I think I already mentioned it has the Novak sights, and these sights are always metal unless you are dealing with or looking at one of the value-added series 3rd gens, and we'll do a video on that shortly. I realize that's probably has some interest for people. But these are always metal sights, Novak, very nice. Snag-free, etc. The California Highway Patrol had a bobbed hammer design. They did not have an exposed hammer, so it's a bobbed hammer there that you can see. The other thing that is interesting is, as I mentioned, that this is not a safety decocker in the traditional 3rd gen configuration. It is just a decocker, and it's spring-loaded. So effectively, if you had racked the slide and had the hammer back, and there you can get a good view of that bobbed hammer as well. You would simply press the decocker down, and it springs back. There is no safety position in this. I really like this. Honestly, I wish they all would have had this. I love that feature on the TSWs. Because again, as I mentioned in my 5904 video, I don't carry it with the safety down. I always carried it with the safety up, and still do, and just another indication of how that should be done. So yeah, really like that feature. That was specific to the California Highway Patrol, or at least the TSW. I don't know if the CHP wanted that specifically, but I know the TSWs, I believe, all have the spring-loaded decocker. The other thing that you'll notice, again, as I chambered that or worked the slide back, we have MIM parts, right? And it's kind of interesting. So we're in the mid 2000s, and we have Smith & Wesson producing MIM parts. And, the MIM parts seem to get a lot of flack. And I am not in that camp. I don't believe there is anything wrong with MIM parts, specifically as the part is described. Maybe if it was, poor quality all the way through, or, etc. But, that was not the style of part of the MIM part that Smith & Wesson was producing. And I think this pistol, if nothing else, seems to prove that point out, because I've noticed on several occasions reports of very high round counts with these pistols. 40,000, I think there was one, even a training pistol that was stated at 100,000 rounds. So, that's, if there's ever an indication or an indicator that MIM parts are robust and good parts, I think that's one of them. Now, how they are fitted to the gun, and as we've talked about on some of the revolver videos, I think we lost some of the finesse of fitting those parts, and then how the gun feels because of the need to fit forged parts. That's not necessarily the case with the semi-autos. I have that feeling more towards revolvers, but I think this is a great indication of MIM parts that function very well and are extremely robust, and there just isn't a problem with these parts from a quality standpoint, material of construction standpoint. So that was really, really kind of interesting. What else can I tell you about the pistol? It also had a large, I don't think you can see that, yeah, a large round indicator, and that there was a round in the chamber, and of course the barrel is stamped very nicely, Smith & Wesson. I believe also, and I'm not sure that'll, yeah, I think you can see the thickness of the rails on the frame, and this was definitely part of the TSW line. I had learned that the rails on the TSW pistols were definitely beefier than the standard. Now that could also have something to do with this caliber, right? And I also understand, you can see how the dust cover here, the amount of material that comes up through here, and just how thick this is on this frame. I think this is one of the major reasons, the way this product was designed and built, that it is, you know, truly capable of firing thousands and tens of thousands of rounds of .40 caliber, which, as we all know, is a fairly high pressure round. Certainly, it's damaged and affected other manufacturers' frames and guns and etc., but certainly not this one. What else can I tell you about it? It has, I think one of the things I've kind of skipped over a little bit on the other third gen, certainly my 5904 video, is that you do have this kind of beveled magwell here. You know, there was some thought put into this as well. You certainly have a beveling there, a very wide access. The magazines themselves, again, in true Smith & Wesson fashion at that time, very well made. May have been made by Metgar, I can't recall, unless this is stamped a certain way. This is an AccuGuide. It's actually stated or stamped on this side, but it is stamped 40 Smith & Wesson with their trademark. It's an 11-round magazine, so these were 11-round capacities. They had this nice traditional plastic polymer butt plate on the bottom, and they also had this dimple that would ensure that the this magazine, which does look very similar to a 10-round 9mm, would not work in a 9mm Smith & Wesson, which I thought was a great idea. And these, all of mine, have blue followers. I've seen different color followers, and I apologize, I just don't recall really what the indications were. I think there were blue, there was yellow, may have been black. I don't really recall what the indications were. For me, mine are blue, which is just another great quick indicator that I'm grabbing my 40-round magazine or 40 cal magazine and not my 9mm magazine. So that's very nice. And of course, all metal and just extremely well made, like they all are. Again, kind of rounding out what we've got here. It's a 4-inch stainless steel barrel, of course. This one, I think, is just in excellent condition. Generally, traditionally, with law enforcement trade-ins or firearms, they're shot little and carried a lot. And this one does have some interesting wear on the right side. I commented this in another video. This is the original grip, as far as I know, that came with the firearm or the sidearm. And it's got a little wear and a little chewing up. I could easily replace this, but I thought it had the character. And again, as far as I know, it's the original grip to the pistol, and I thought it kind of just kept with the nature and character of the firearm. So just kind of kept that on there. But these are very nice grips, and again, checkered on the back, etc. And I think I already mentioned the weight. You know, it's 29 ounces as a formal weight, or just under that. And again, it's just a very, very solid firearm. You know, when I pick up my SIG 229, I think that, you know, Legion, I think that is a very, very well-built, solid firearm in every respect, and it is. But I picked this up, and then you really just understand what, you know, building something out of solid stainless steel in this fashion and with this level of detail and engineering is just, I think, is just really neat. So yeah, that's really the you know, the pistol at hand and what I kind of wanted to talk about today. I don't think I've forgotten anything to really explain to you all. It's a pleasure to shoot. I don't know how many are around. I don't know exactly how many were made. I read at one point there were 7,500 to maybe 10,000 of these made. And I guess that would be true because I think California Highway Patrol had about 7,000 or 8,000 sworn officers at that time. So they, if they had to reissue or re-equip the department with the next set of pistols, it would probably have been in that range. So I think that's probably an accurate number. What else can I tell you? I think that, like I said, really rounds out the pistol. You can still locate them. I have a shop near me that I don't know, maybe once a year we'll get 3 or 4 in. I haven't seen too many lately, but Gunbroker tends to have them from time to time. About the price of a used Glock, although I think the numbers are rising now because I think people understand it's really starting to get into a limited, fashion, or, numbers are limited, and just getting your hands on one now, if you really want one, is I think getting a little bit more challenging. I haven't checked prices maybe in the last 6 months or so, but again, just a great pistol. If you're looking for, once again, a single action, double action, all metal gun in .40, and you're looking for a heavier firearm to soak up that .40 recoil, I can't really, argue this is a great choice. It's certainly for home defense, certainly for target shooting. Again, very heavy to carry every day. I can't really see this being a CCW style firearm. You would need a very good duty holster and a very good duty belt, I think, to make it generally comfortable. But in that regard, it's just a very, very solid firearm and very enjoyable to shoot. So hope you guys like that one. A little bit shorter. It's just specifically on this firearm, the Smith & Wesson 4006 TSW, and again, that was Tactical Smith & Wesson and CHP, California Highway Patrol. This one was made from 2006 to 2007. I hope everybody enjoyed the video. Again, please subscribe, give us some comments, and we'll see you next time on The Daily Defender.